Let's tie an articulated baby trout. We start with a wiggle shank from the Flyman Fish Company. This is 8/0 uni thread in white. And I go in, tie it in behind the eye and bring it probably be about a 1/2 inch down from the eye. I've got some ice dub minnow belly, and I'm using a pettigene clip to pull some of the fibers out. I've got it lined up out of the package, and I just tie a bundle out. At the same time, I'm trying to also align those fibers so they're a bit parallel to another. I've got a stacker also from pettigene to bundle those fibers up. I'll take a moment to comb it through, align the fibers up a little bit better, make sure I got the right amount of dubbing. So what you see is me in the background is just lining those fibers up, taking the excess, pulling them through. Also comb through it some. I'll lash it to the top of my hook. And double over, so I just get a little bit more of a bulk in the front end of that. Lash it down nicely and finish it off. Now, so that my dubbing stays where I want to, I'll just take a little drop of super glue to make sure it stays in the same position. Now, you don't need very much. It'll soak through everything. So just put it on the bottom and just one little drop. Then I'm going to trim off the excess shank. So we're going to take that extended portion, articulated portion, and just set it aside for right now. Now the hook I'm going to use for the body section or the head section is a 24.99. This just happens to be a size 8. Tiemco, of course. I like this hook because of its spear point. And it's barbless. And it's heavy. Once again, I'm going to grab my uni thread, 8/0 white. I'm going to take it in probably back into where a barb would be if this was a barbed hook. Now I'm going to take a piece of 50-pound mono and crimp it so it has a flat area, and that's the portion I'm going to use to attach to the hook. Now I'm using this 50-pound mono as an anchor for my loop for my extended section. And the reason I flatten it is because if you have a flat, I have increased surface area attached to the hook or touching the hook. Instead of if you have a round item contacting a round item, very little surface area, this way I get a lot more contact area. I'm also going to add a dab of super glue, but it's not really necessary because there's no pressure really going to be applied onto that extended section or that articulated section. I just figure 8. Now I have a piece of 3X fluorocarbon tippet. And once again, I'm going to flatten the very front section of it, and then about a 1/2 inch to 3/8 of an inch, I'm going to leave blank, and then I'm going to put another crimp in it. And what those two crimps do is I'm going to match them up together. Once again, flat surface to flat surface. And that loop that is created, that's actually where my extended section is going to lay. So I get a nice free movement from that. See those two crimp sections? I'm going to match those up flat to flat. Now, if you'll notice, I'm going to take my extended section and it's actually upside down. So the portion that I glued, piece that I glued, is facing up. I like that because then the dubbing rolls down underneath like a real belly would be. Now I've got it over, take one loop and then match up the flat, one wrap of thread, and then I match up the flat areas of the tippet. Now I go over that, bring it over, and then over the top again, under the hook and over, and that creates my loop. So that if there is any pressure on that extended section, it goes right into the hook and not onto the loop. The pressure isn't on the loop. Trim that excess off. And also trim off the 50-pound, the excess portion of the 50-pound mono. Now, I don't expect you to go out and buy a 50-pound spool of mono, but all I do is go over to my local sporting goods store and ask them if I can buy a yard of 50-pound mono, and they're more happy. And it's pennies, either 50 and or 30-pound work. Now, once again, I've got a little drop of super glue and mush it around a bit. Don't need very much. Go light. Now what I have is some red ostrich herl. And the reason I use the red ostrich herl, for me it's like if you look at a bait fish, when it gets in distress and it starts swimming around, you can see its gills. So I'm, not that this thing needs any more flash, but the red for me is like gills. And that fish can see that. And I think it triggers them. So I just double it over, twist it, match up those two ends, use my hackle pliers and twist it. And the reason for twisting it is so that the barbules, the hairs, flare out. And just wrap it up right up into behind that 50-pound post of mine, mono post, and then tie it off. Now I'm going to take another bundle of that I-stub minnow belly, and not as large a bundle, but once again, I'm trying to line those fibers up. That's one of the Magnum clips. That's the largest clip that Petit Jean makes. Use my Petit Jean stacker again to gather that bundle. I'll line it up a little bit. The fibers up, the dubbing fibers. And tie it in right at that mono, where I've got that mono post. Fold it over on itself. Really rack that baby down. And tie off. Now I've got some polar dub in olive brown, and that's going to be the top of my baby trout. I like this. It's a really dirty brown color. It's a tertiary color, and I think it looks closer to what a trout looks like from the top. Now the other stuff you could do is the Senyo's laser dub in olive. That'll work also. But I like this specifically for the trout, baby trout. Once again, I've trapped those fibers in that Pettigene clip. Use my stacker to gather them up. I'm not sure what I used to do without that stacker. Just pull those fibers together. Makes it much easier. I'm just trying to get a nice aligned bundle with all those dubbing fibers. Comb it out a bit. I know it's got pretty kinky, so I'm trying to straighten it out. And tie it on top. And lash it. Kept slipping off on me. Fold it over on itself. And whip finish. Starting to look like a trout. Now, I have now a piece of the Senyo's laser dub in fluorescent fuchsia, or hot pink, but Senyo calls it, Hairline calls it fluorescent fuchsia. Tie it in, just a little bundle. I got a little much going here, but I like that little flash. Double it on itself, and then do it to the other side also. Double it over. Now I'm just going to take a pinch of purple. I think it makes it look pretty. There's a few fibers. Tie it in and then double itself again. Build up in the front also helps me because I'm going to use a fish mask on here, and it gives me some bulk to fill up that fish mask. Take another bundle of purple. This is also ice dub and UV lavender. It looks purple to me. And whip finish. Now I'm going to take a moment to add a little bit of super glue. Want this baby rolling all over the place. Just a drop, maybe two. That's it. It'll soak in really well. Now, I'm adding a little bit more super glue because I'm going to take a piece of pearlescent sheet, and it's about 3/4 by 3/4. It's a little square of pearlescent sheeting. So there's a square. You can see the crease already. I'm going to fold it in half along its diagonal, and then I'm going to trim out the gill plates. So basically I just need to round it off a bit. That's the nose. Then I cut across the what we call a mountain ridge in origami, so it splits, trim off the corners, and round it out a bit. And this gives it a really flashy head. Now see that fold, that ridge? That's going to be at the very top. So I pull it down and then I tie it in. And also remember, I've got some super glue underneath it, so it ain't going nowhere. But I need to nail that down really well because it's also the base of for my fish mask. Now you see that extra space right there behind the eye? I need that extra space because you'll see when I add the fish mask on there, I need that space so that I can tie a little bit of thread to also prevent the head from slipping off the front again. I don't think it's necessary, I just do it because that's what they recommend in the application of their fish mask. Tie off the thread. And you just trim off some of the excess fibers. Also, I've got a marker, just an olive marker, just to take some of the whiteness out of that white thread. Now apply a little bit of glue. And this is a small fish mask from Flyman. Push it on. Now see that space? There's a little bit of space right in front of the mask. I'm going to add a little bit of thread into there, and that'll help prevent the mask from coming off. It doesn't really need it with the super glue and such, but once again, it's that's how they ask you to do it. That's their application. Doesn't quite look like a baby trout yet because the fibers are all over the place. I'm going to tie off that thread, build a little bit of head, and just so the fish mask can't come off. And I'm going to add some 3D eyes. These are small. They also come from Flyman. After having used these 3D eyes, I don't think I can ever go back to the flat eyes. These look way too realistic. Now, granted, the fish don't care, but I'm going to put this much work into a fly. I'm going to get the best looking materials I possibly can. And apply another eye on the other side. Now obviously they just can't stay there, so I'm going to take some UV resin and coat the eyes as well as coat a portion of the gill plate. Now I don't completely cover the gill plate, just halfway through. The reason being is because the end of it flaps around a bit and needs to be able to bend, and the UV resin has a tendency to come off. So I just go halfway into it where I know the head's solid and I don't have much movement for its foundation. Put some UV resin down, hit it with my laser. Flip it over and do the other side. Now see how I just get a little bit on the gill plate? Not very much. And then on the top also it comes down into. Once again, hit it with my laser. Now, I've got this Copic marker. This is Spanish olive, and this is their airbrush system. And what I like is I like the head of the fly to be a little bit darker. So I'm giving it a gradient, and I'm using this marker to color it up. What's nice about these markers, if you buy the refills for them, or the markers, you just switch out the marker if you need more ink. And you can buy ink to refill the markers. See how it's a little bit darker up at the front of the head? That's what I'm looking for. And I'll give you an idea what this thing's going to look like more in the water. I've taken some, this is hand sanitizer, it's alcohol based. And I'm just slimming down the fly because it gathers up. When you put this in the water, it actually looks more like this. And I've actually put it into a fish tank, fly test fish tank. And it's the bottom section that really wiggles with the tail. And that gives you a better look of the whole fly. And that's my articulated baby trout.